You set a few pots out on the patio this spring, sun on the soil, hoping for real food and not just green leaves. I've been growing in containers since before most folks thought it was possible, and I'll let you in on what the years taught me. A small pot of potatoes can hand you a pound or two every single week. One healthy pepper plant gives you dozens. The trick was never more pots. It was choosing the few vegetables that actually pay you back. So here are 11 vegetables that out-yield everything else in a pot. Not the pretty ones. The productive ones. The ones that fill a kitchen counter from a balcony railing. And number 5 gives you something you can eat in under a month, which is the fastest food on this whole list. So, stick around for that one. If you garden in a small space and you want more out of every pot, the channel is full of this kind of thing, so settle in. One thing before we count down, because it matters for every plant on this list. Skip the dirt from the yard. Garden soil packs down hard in a pot, like flour pressed into a cup, and roots can't breathe in it. Use a bag of potting mix instead, the light, fluffy kind, and make sure every container has a hole in the bottom so water can run out. A pot with no drainage drowns the roots, and a drowned plant gives you nothing no matter how good the seed was. That one habit, decent mix and a drainage hole, is the floor under every harvest I'm about to describe. Number 11. Radishes. I'm starting here because radishes teach you something the seed companies don't put on the packet. Speed is a yield too. A radish goes from seed to your plate in about 3 to 4 weeks. That means one shallow pot can give you 3 or 4 full crops in a single summer, where a tomato gives you one. You don't need depth here. A container 6 inches deep is plenty, because radishes are shallow-rooted little things. Think of the pot like a cake pan, not a bucket. Give them 4 to 6 hours of sun and keep the soil evenly damp, like a wrung-out dishcloth. Here's the one warning. If radishes dry out, they turn woody and hot enough to make your eyes water, so don't let that soil bake. Sow a new pinch of seeds every 2 weeks, and you'll be pulling crisp radishes from spring straight through fall. For the space they take, nothing turns over faster. Number 10. Leaf lettuce. Lettuce earns its pot because it doesn't make you wait and it doesn't make you replant. Grow the loose leaf and cut and come again types, not the heads, and you pick the outer leaves while the center keeps growing. One pot feeds you for weeks instead of once. A container, 8 to 10 inches deep, holds 3 or 4 plants comfortably. Lettuce actually prefers a little shade in high summer, so a spot with morning sun and afternoon relief suits it fine, 4 hours or so. Keep the soil consistently moist, because dry roots turn lettuce bitter overnight. The warning here is heat. When the weather climbs into the 90s, lettuce bolts, meaning it shoots up a flower stalk and the leaves go bitter. So lean on lettuce in the cooler shoulders of the season, spring and fall. Tuck the pot where it catches the early sun and ducks the brutal afternoon, and you'll be snipping fresh salad off the railing for the price of one seed packet. Number 9. Bush beans. Beans are one of the best returns in container gardening, and the bush types are made for it. They stay compact, around 18 inches to 2 feet tall, no trellis required, and they crank out pods for weeks. The secret with beans is that picking is feeding. The more you harvest, the more the plant makes, because it's trying to set seed, and you keep stopping it. A pot that holds about 3 gallons of soil suits a couple of bush bean plants. They want full sun, 6 hours or better, and steady water once they start flowering, or the pods come out tough and stringy. The warning is timing. Beans don't like cold soil, so wait until nights stay warm before you sow, or the seeds just rot in the pot. There's a bonus too. Beans actually feed the soil they grow in, pulling nitrogen down to their own roots, so the potting mix comes out richer than it went in. Get that right, and a single container of bush beans will hand you fistfuls of fresh pods every few days through the heart of summer. Number 8. Swiss chard. If I had to pick the most generous leafy green for a pot, it's chard. You plant it once and it gives back for months, sometimes right up until a hard frost. You cut the outer stalks, the plant pushes new ones from the center, and it just keeps going. One plant in a container 10 inches deep can feed a household of greens all season. Chard handles full sun, but also takes partial shade, so it's forgiving about where you set it. Keep the soil moist and it stays tender. The one caution is that chard gets big, so don't crowd it. Give a single plant its own 12-inch pot or 2 plants a wide trough, because chard packed too tight grows small and sulks. The rainbow varieties with stems in red and gold and pink look handsome enough to sit on a front porch, but you're growing them to eat, and they outproduce nearly every other green by sheer staying power. Number 7. Kale. Kale is chard's tougher cousin, and it belongs on any list about food per pot. One plant, harvested leaf by leaf from the bottom up, will feed you for an entire season and then keep going after the first frosts, because cold actually makes kale sweeter. A 5-gallon pot holds one good-sized kale plant with room for its roots. Give it full sun in spring and fall, 6 hours, and consistent water, so the leaves stay tender instead of leathery. The warning with kale is pests. Cabbage worms love it, those little green caterpillars that chew lacy holes in the leaves. Check the undersides of the leaves every few days and pick them off by hand, because in a container, you don't need sprays for a problem you can solve with 2 fingers. A single kale plant can give you leaves long after the lettuce has quit, which is exactly the kind of long-haul yield a small space needs. Number 6. Bush cucumbers. Cucumbers have a reputation for sprawling all over the yard, but the bush and compact varieties were bred to stay put in a pot, and they produce like the full-sized kind. Look for anything labeled bush, patio, or compact on the tag. One plant wants a container that holds about 5 gallons, because cucumbers are thirsty, and a small pot just can't keep up. Full sun, 6 to 8 hours, and here's the part people miss. Cucumbers need water like clockwork. A 5-gallon pot holds water like a deep mug, not a shallow plate, and that depth is what keeps the fruit from turning bitter. In the hottest stretch of summer, that can mean watering every single morning, because a pot bakes from all sides in a way the open ground never does. Let a cucumber plant dry out and the cukes come out bitter and misshapen. So this is one you water deeply and often in the heat. Tuck a short trellis or even a tomato cage into the pot to keep the vines off the ground. And one bush cucumber plant will give you more cukes than you expected from something that fits on a step. Number 5. Here's the fast one I promised. Number 5 is salad turnips, and I mean the small, sweet Japanese kind you eat raw, not the big storage turnips. These are the fastest real food on the list. Ready in about 5 weeks, and you get 2 crops in one. You eat the crisp white roots, and you eat the leafy greens on top, so a single pot gives you 2 vegetables at once. A container 8 inches deep does the job, the same shallow cake pan depth the radishes wanted. 4 to 6 hours of sun, even moisture, and that's nearly the whole story. The warning is the same as radishes. Let them dry out or leave them in the pot too long, and the roots turn pithy and sharp. But pulled young. These turnips are sweet enough to eat off the cutting board. For somebody who wants to see food come out of a balcony pot before the month is out, this is the one. That's the standout I told you to wait for, and it earns the spot. If you're getting something out of this, that little subscribe button keeps these coming. No pressure. Let's keep going, because the biggest hitters are still ahead. Number 4. Peppers. Now we're into the heavy producers. One healthy pepper plant gives you dozens of peppers across a season, which is a remarkable return for a single pot. Peppers love container life because they enjoy warm roots, and a dark pot in the sun gives them exactly that. The smaller varieties grow fine in a 3-gallon pot, but the big bells want at least 5 gallons each to size up properly. Peppers are sun lovers, so give them 6 to 8 hours, all you can spare. Water steadily, because a pepper plant that swings between bone dry and soaked drops its flowers and gives you nothing. The warning is patience. Peppers are slow to start, and they sulk in cold weather, so don't rush them outside before the nights warm up. One more thing that doubles your harvest. Pick the first peppers a little early, while they're still green and firm, and the plant pours its energy into making more instead of ripening the few it has. But once a pepper plant gets going in the summer heat, it just keeps setting fruit, and a couple of pots can give you more peppers than you know what to do with. Number 3. Pole beans. I gave you bush beans earlier for the easy win, but pole beans are where the real volume lives, because they grow up instead of out. That vertical habit is the whole trick. A pole bean climbs a 6 or 7 foot string or trellis, and every foot of that vine is making pods, so a tiny footprint on the ground turns into a tall wall of beans. Think of it like stacking groceries on shelves instead of spreading them across the counter. One deep pot, around 5 gallons, with a sturdy trellis anchored in it, will out-yield a whole row of bush beans in the same floor space. Full sun, 6 hours minimum, and reliable water once they flower. The warning is the support. That trellis has to be solid and tall before you plant, because a loaded pole bean vine is heavy, and trying to add a stake later just tears the roots. Pick the pods young and often, and pole beans will keep climbing and producing right up until frost. Number 2. Tomatoes. You knew this one was coming, because tomatoes are the king of the container harvest. In a big enough pot, a single tomato plant can give you around 10 pounds of fruit across a season. The catch is in those 4 words, a big enough pot. They drop a tomato in a 1-gallon nursery pot and wonder why it dries out by noon and quits by August. A tomato wants a big home. Give an indeterminate variety at least a 10-gallon container, and even a compact patio tomato wants 5 gallons to itself. Full sun, 8 hours if you can, and deep, consistent water, because tomatoes that dry and re-wet over and over get blossom end rot, that ugly black sunken patch on the bottom of the fruit. A pot, the size of a small bucket, holds enough water and root room to carry that plant through a hot afternoon. A handful of crushed eggshells worked into the planting hole helps with that calcium too, the same trick the old farm wives used. Cage it or stake it early, feed it through the season, and one well-housed tomato plant will outproduce everything else on this list by weight. Number 1. Potatoes. And the most food for the least fuss is the humble potato. You bury a few seed potatoes in a deep container, hill soil up around the stems as they grow, and at the end you tip the whole thing over, and a pound or 2 of potatoes tumbles out, sometimes more, from a single pot. There's almost nothing else that turns a bag of dirt into that much real storable food. Potatoes want depth, so use a tall container or a grow bag that holds at least 10 gallons, the deeper the better, because the more stem you bury, the more potatoes you grow. Full sun, 6 hours or more, and even moisture, especially once the plants flower, because that's when the tubers are filling out underground. The warning is light. Any potato that pokes up and turns green has made a mild toxin, and you cut that part away, so keep them covered with soil. Plant a few pots a few weeks apart, and you'll be digging fresh potatoes out of containers all summer long, which is about as close to magic as a balcony gets. So that's 11 vegetables that actually earn their pots. And if you're sitting there feeling like that's a lot to take on, don't. You don't plant all 11. Start with 3 pots. Just 3. Put a tomato in the biggest one, a pepper next to it, and a shallow pot of radishes or salad turnips for the quick reward while the others get going. That's it. That's a whole little food garden on a patio. Picture it in late summer. You walk out to the balcony with a bowl, and you come back in with potatoes still cool from the soil, a handful of beans, a few peppers, a tomato heavy enough to need 2 hands. Food you grew in pots, in a space somebody told you was too small to bother with. That counter full of vegetables didn't come from a backyard. It came from a railing and a few good choices. If this helped you look at your patio a little differently, the channel has plenty more like it. And I'd love to know which 3 pots you're starting with. So drop a comment and tell me what's going on your balcony this year.